The room went silent the moment Bruce Lee stepped forward. Not the kind of silence caused by fear, but the kind that arrives when something important is about to happen. Across from him stood Mike Tyson. A force of nature. Raw power packed into muscle and rage. Iron fists that had ended fights in seconds. A presence that made grown men rethink their confidence. On one side, speed, precision, and control. On the other, brutality, aggression, and unstoppable force. No cameras were allowed. No ring lights. No referee counting seconds. This wasn't entertainment. This was energy meeting energy. The air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. People in the room, trainers, fighters, veterans of combat, had seen violence before. But this felt different. Because this wasn't about who could hit harder. It was about whose philosophy would survive. Mike Tyson didn't need to speak. His shoulders rolled, his jaw tightened, his eyes locked forward like a predator that had already chosen its target. His reputation walked into the room before he did. Bruce Lee, however, moved differently. Relaxed shoulders. Calm breathing. Eyes alive, alert, calculating. No tension. No wasted motion. Someone whispered, "Speed can't stop that kind of power." Another voice replied, "Power means nothing if it never lands." Bruce took one step closer. Not aggressive. Not defensive. Just present. In that single moment, it became clear. This wasn't a challenge. This was a lesson waiting to happen. Two legends. Two paths to greatness. One instant that would remind everyone watching. True dominance isn't loud. True strength doesn't rush. And respect is often earned before the first strike is ever thrown. It happened behind closed doors, far from flashing cameras and screaming crowds. This was a private martial arts exhibition, the kind where egos walked in quietly, but reputations shouted without words. The room was packed. Fighters with broken knuckles. Trainers who had shaped champions. Veterans who had seen real combat, not highlights. And yet, everyone kept saying the same name. Mike Tyson. Not as a boxer. As a presence. An undefeated mindset wrapped in raw violence. A man who believed power ended all conversations. A man whose fists had rewritten confidence in seconds. When Tyson stood, people felt it. Chairs stopped moving. Conversations lowered. This was brutality refined into instinct. Then the door opened again. No announcement. No entourage. Bruce Lee walked in. Simple clothes. Relaxed posture. Eyes sharp enough to notice everything and reveal nothing. No flexing. No intimidation. No trash talk. Just calm. Some didn't recognize him at first. Others did, and leaned forward in disbelief. How could someone so composed stand in the same space as someone so explosive? A whisper cut through the room. Speed means nothing against brute force. Bruce heard it. He didn't react. Because he wasn't there to argue. He was there to observe. Two philosophies now shared the same air. One believed dominance was taken. The other believed it was controlled. Before we go further, Speech Balloon, comment your country below. Thumbs up like this video if you respect real discipline. Bell subscribe for more legendary stories they never show you on TV. Because what was about to unfold wasn't about fighting. It was about understanding power itself. Tyson smirked, the kind of smile that had ended careers before a single punch was thrown. It wasn't friendly. It wasn't curious. It was the smile of a man who had never needed permission to dominate. "So you're the fast guy everyone talks about," he said, tilting his head slightly. His voice was calm, but the room felt tighter the moment the words landed. Every fighter there knew that tone. It was the sound that came right before chaos. Bruce Lee looked at him and smiled softly. Not mockingly. Not nervously. Just calm. "Speed isn't the goal," Bruce replied. "Control is." The words didn't echo, but their meaning did. A few people exchanged glances. Some smirked. Others frowned. Control? Against Mike Tyson? Tyson took one slow step forward. The sound of his shoe against the floor was dull, but it carried weight. It felt like pressure dropped into the room. Like gravity had suddenly increased. Someone near the back swallowed hard. This was the distance where fights usually ended quickly. This was where intimidation turned into impact. Everyone expected Bruce to move, to shift back, to angle away, to create space. He didn't. Bruce stood exactly where he was. Feet grounded, knees loose, arms relaxed at his sides. No guard raised. No stance exaggerated. Just ready. That was when the tension truly changed. Tyson stopped. For the first time since entering the room, he paused, not because he was unsure, but because something felt wrong. Not threatening. Not dangerous. Unfamiliar. Most men reacted to him the same way. Their bodies gave them away before their mouths ever did. Shoulders tightened. Breathing shortened. Eyes flickered. Bruce showed none of it. His breathing was slow. Almost meditative. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't defiance. It was comfort. And that disturbed Tyson more than any insult ever could. He circled slightly, testing the air, watching for movement. Bruce turned with him, not chasing, not retreating, just matching. No wasted motion. Every shift from Tyson was met with presence, not resistance. Someone whispered, "He's not scared." Another voice answered, "He's not trying to win." That second realization unsettled everyone. Because if Bruce wasn't trying to win, then what was he doing? Tyson leaned forward just enough to invade space. Not an attack. A test. A warning. 100 fights had taught him this moment. This was when opponents blinked. When instinct betrayed training. Bruce didn't blink. His eyes stayed relaxed, focused, not on Tyson's fists, not on his shoulders, but on the center. The source. Tyson felt it. A strange sensation crept in. Like swinging at a shadow and realizing the shadow was watching back. "You don't look impressed," Tyson said. Bruce tilted his head slightly. "Impression comes from noise," he replied. "Understanding comes from silence." A few trainers exchanged uneasy looks. This wasn't trash talk. This was something else. Tyson exhaled sharply through his nose. His fists tightened, not to strike, but to remind himself who he was. The most feared man in the room. And yet, for the first time in a long time, fear wasn't bouncing back at him. Bruce took one step forward. Not fast. Not slow. Precise. The room froze. That single step didn't challenge Tyson's power. It challenged his timing. And timing was something Tyson had always taken for granted. Now, for the first time, he felt measured. Calculated. Tyson shifted his weight unconsciously. Bruce noticed. Everyone missed it, except Bruce. And that was the moment the tension peaked. Not because a punch was about to be thrown, but because everyone realized something far more unsettling. This encounter was no longer about strength versus speed. It was about who controlled the moment. And in that quiet, breath-held space between movement and stillness, Mike Tyson realized he was standing in someone else's tempo. No punch was thrown. No bell rang. Yet every instinct in the room screamed that a fight had begun. It happened in a fraction of a second, so fast that some people wouldn't fully process it until later. Mike Tyson moved first. Not with a full strike. Not with intent to finish. He lunged. A sudden burst forward, sharp and explosive, meant to test, to intimidate, to claim space. The kind of movement that usually forced men to flinch or freeze. But Bruce Lee didn't flinch. He shifted. Not backward. Not sideways in panic. He slipped, clean, efficient, effortless, like water flowing around a stone. The air split where Bruce had been standing. Tyson's fist cut through empty space. A sharp whoosh echoed in the silence. For a brief, disorienting moment, Tyson felt something unfamiliar. Nothing. No resistance. No impact. No confirmation. And then, Bruce was no longer in front of him. He was behind him. Close enough that Tyson could feel the change in the air. Close enough to sense presence without contact. Gasps rippled through the room. Not loud. Controlled. Almost respectful. Bruce didn't strike. He didn't grab. He didn't pose. He simply stood there. Calm. Balanced. Ready. That choice, not to attack, was louder than any punch could have been. Tyson turned slowly. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in concentration. He replayed the movement in his mind, trying to understand how his timing had been erased so completely. It wasn't speed alone. It was anticipation. Bruce hadn't reacted to the lunge. He had moved before it fully existed. Someone near the wall whispered, "Did you see that?" Another replied. He was gone before the punch was real. Tyson rolled his shoulders once, grounding himself. This wasn't supposed to happen. Power was supposed to dominate space. Aggression was supposed to force answers. But Bruce hadn't answered with force. He had answered with absence. Tyson took another step, slower this time. Bruce matched it. Same distance. Same calm. Always just out of reach. It was like chasing a reflection in water. Every movement distorted the image, but never touched it. Tyson tested again. A sharper feint. A quicker drive. Bruce flowed. No wasted motion. No tension in his shoulders. Every shift was small, economical, just enough. The room had changed. Earlier, people leaned forward expecting violence. Now they leaned in to understand. This wasn't a clash of fists. It was a clash of philosophies. Tyson stopped again. He looked at Bruce differently now. Not as an opponent. As a problem. Bruce met his gaze. Not challenging. Not submissive. Present. In control. The message had landed. You can't intimidate what doesn't fear. You can't overpower what doesn't resist. And you can't hit what you can't touch. For the first time that day, Mike Tyson didn't advance. He nodded slightly, not in defeat, but in recognition. The room exhaled together. No one spoke. Because everyone understood. They had just witnessed a clash where nothing was exchanged. Yet everything had been decided. And without throwing a single punch, Bruce Lee had already made his point. Tyson stopped. Not because he was tired. Not because he was threatened. But because something didn't make sense. His chest rose and fell more heavily now, each breath sharp and audible in the quiet room. It wasn't exhaustion from movement, it was the strain of confusion. The kind that comes when instinct fails to deliver the result it has always promised. He stared at Bruce Lee. Not with anger. Not with challenge. But with curiosity. "This isn't fear," Tyson muttered under his breath, almost to himself. "This is something else." The words surprised even him. Mike Tyson had built his entire life around reading fear. He knew it in the tightening of shoulders, the hesitation in footwork, the panic hidden behind bravado. Fear had always announced itself clearly. But Bruce showed none of it. Bruce stood exactly where he was, balanced, relaxed, breathing evenly. His heartbeat hadn't changed. His eyes hadn't hardened. He hadn't needed to prove anything. Bruce spoke quietly, his voice calm enough that people leaned in just to hear it. "Brutality ends when energy is wasted," he said. "Speed survives because it wastes nothing." The room absorbed the words slowly. This wasn't a lecture. It wasn't a challenge. It was an explanation. Tyson replayed everything in his mind, the lunge, the empty air, the sudden presence behind him. He realized something unsettling. He hadn't been dodged. He had been read. Bruce hadn't reacted to power. He had predicted intent. And that realization hit harder than any punch ever had. For the first time, Tyson understood that raw force, no matter how terrifying, still depended on contact. And contact depended on timing. Bruce had taken timing away from him. Around them, the mood shifted. Earlier, the room had been charged with anticipation. Now it was filled with respect. Not applause. Not noise. Respect. One trainer whispered, "He's not faster, he's earlier." Another nodded slowly. "That's worse." Tyson exhaled and loosened his fists. His posture changed, not weaker, but more thoughtful. "You didn't try to hurt me," Tyson said. Bruce nodded once. There was no need. That answer landed deep. Tyson had always believed dominance came from damage, from showing what you could do. Bruce had shown something else entirely. What you didn't need to do. Fire if this moment surprised you. Thumbs up like the video. Speech balloon comment, speed, or power below. Bell subscribe for more untold legends they never teach you. Tyson took a step back, not retreating, but resetting. I've always believed power ends things, he said honestly. But you make it feel unfinished. Bruce smiled faintly. Because real understanding doesn't end, he replied. It expands. Silence followed. Not awkward. Not tense. Reflective. Everyone in that room felt it, the shift from confrontation to comprehension. This was no longer about who would win. It was about what had been learned. Tyson nodded slowly, once more. This time, unmistakably. Respect. The realization was complete. Not that Bruce Lee was untouchable, but that true mastery doesn't collide head-on with force. It redirects it. And in that moment, Mike Tyson, one of the most brutal fighters the world had ever known, understood something new. Power may command attention, but control commands truth. Tyson stepped back. Not abruptly. Not defensively. Just one measured step, enough to reset the space between them. Then he nodded. It wasn't the nod of surrender. It was the nod of acknowledgement. No one ever made me feel slow, Tyson said, his voice steady but honest. Until now. The words carried weight. For a man whose entire legacy was built on speed and power, admitting slowness wasn't weakness. It was awareness. Bruce Lee responded by bowing slightly. Not deep. Not ceremonial. Just enough to show respect. No one ever taught me respect through silence, Tyson added after a moment. The room felt lighter. The tension that had once pressed down on everyone slowly lifted, replaced by something far rarer than excitement. Understanding. Two warriors stood facing each other, not as rivals, but as mirrors. Each reflecting a truth the other had lived, but never fully explored. Tyson had mastered destruction. Bruce had mastered economy. One dominated through force. The other through control. Different paths. Same destination. Tyson rolled his shoulders again, this time without aggression. You move like you're already gone, he said. That's not speed. That's timing. Bruce nodded. Timing comes from listening, he replied. To the opponent. To yourself. People around them began to relax. Some smiled. Others simply watched, knowing they were witnessing something rare. Not a clash of legends, but a meeting of minds. Tyson extended his hand. There was no hesitation. Bruce took it. The handshake was firm, equal, and brief. No dominance. No performance. Just respect. Someone in the back quietly said, "This is what real strength looks like." No one disagreed, because strength had just redefined itself in that room. Not as intimidation. Not as victory, but as restraint. Two warriors. Different paths. Same truth learned. And in that moment, both men walked away richer, not in reputation, but in understanding. Power may intimidate, but control dominates. The world has always been impressed by noise, by force, by the loud impact that announces itself before it arrives. We cheer for power because it's easy to see. It shakes the ground. It demands attention. But what happened in that quiet room reminded everyone of something deeper. Speed doesn't scream. It doesn't need an introduction. It simply appears, and disappears just as fast. Wisdom doesn't threaten. It waits. It observes. It understands. And true strength, real strength, doesn't need to prove itself. Bruce Lee didn't raise his voice. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't chase validation. Yet he controlled the moment completely. Mike Tyson didn't lose that day. And Bruce Lee didn't win. What happened was far more valuable. Both men gained perspective. One learned that power without timing is incomplete. The other showed that discipline without ego becomes untouchable. That's the lesson most people miss. Strength isn't about domination. It's about awareness. It's knowing when to act, and when not to. It's understanding that silence can be louder than violence. And that restraint is often the highest form of mastery. In life, just like in combat, people will try to intimidate you. They'll raise their voices. They'll test your limits. They'll mistake calm for weakness. But calm isn't weakness. Calm is control. When you don't rush. When you don't react emotionally. When you don't waste energy trying to impress. You stand in your own tempo. And anyone who steps into that space must play by your rules. That's why this moment mattered. Not because two legends stood face to face, but because they showed us something timeless. True power is quiet. True mastery is patient. True respect is earned, not demanded. Writing hand comment, respect, if you believe real power is discipline. Thumbs up like this video if this story taught you something meaningful. Bell subscribe for more legendary moments that inspire, not just entertain. Because legends don't fade with time. They evolve into lessons. And the greatest lesson of all is knowing that you never need to prove who you are, when your presence already speaks for you.